Welcome to No Excuses. Today we're going to talk about the books that I read in the previous week. Now, we are on a bit of a delay because of giving me time to edit while I'm working and doing everything. So this week you're going to actually hear the books that I read while I was on vacation. And I read one book. It was a little bit of a longer book and it actually went by a little bit slower. I read the book Somebody to Love, biography about Freddie Mercury. The book was actually very interesting. It actually starts with Freddie Mercury's story before he was actually Freddie Mercury. And it talks about his growing up years and how he was in boarding schools and his family and how they moved and everything into it. It talks about how he fell in love and he knew he was meant to be a musician and a performer. And it walks you through his everything. And it talks about his early forays into bands and into the music field and how he actually worked his way into this field and how he met his future bandmates and all of this stuff. And it talks about them as they, fought and worked really hard to make Queen what it is that we know. And so you would have a chapter about that and we would talk about it. And it goes into intricate details. On July 3rd is the date that we did this. And it really breaks down the history of him in terms of being a performer. And because they would talk about, how they filmed this. They would talk about it hit such and such on the charts. It hit such and such number on the charts on such and such day. In the US charts, it hit this number on that day. And it was very intricate about that. And so you got to really walk through the lifespan of Freddie, and not just Freddie Mercury, but also Queen. Now, interspersed with this, you would read a chapter here and there, and it would talk about the AIDS epidemic. And, of course, we're going through time frames, so as something happens in the history of AIDS, they actually discussed it. I actually learned a lot. I'm like probably most of you, we actually learned and we heard about AIDS. We know a little bit about it, but do you really know much about it? We know how it spread so fast in the 70s, in the 80s. But do you know much about it? I was intrigued to find out that it actually started by, animals in Africa. They each carried a virus that was totally different, and they somehow crossed, and it created the HIV virus that we are aware of. And all it took was that animal that had the cross-pollinated illnesses from the two to bite a human, and AIDS is born. HIV is born. It talks about how it would have probably died out, except that there was a humanitarian trip. People from Haiti went to Africa on a humanitarian trip, and that's when one got bit. They went back to Haiti. And it talks about different reasons why this virus didn't just die out. It talks about how the virus was spread heavily through unsafe blood transfusions and the way to get the blood. And yes, it did talk about the gay scene, because that is what really spread the virus like hot fire. It was interesting because I know of the disease, but I never really sat back and learned about it. So it was a very good learning experience. And, of course, as we're doing this, we're seeing Freddie Mercury living a lifestyle that we know is going to lead to badness, because we all know how he passed away. It kind of left me cold. I know a lot of that is because we now have a lot more knowledge about HIV, how it's transmitted and all of that. And, as we're watching the story and we are hearing reports that Freddie Mercury had been tested and had kept it a secret for years. And he did not curb his behavior. He did not stop sleeping with multiple people. And, I just sat there going, seriously, I had to keep reminding myself it was a different time frame. They really, at one point, weren't even sure how it was transmitted. So, but it was a good book. I would recommend it. It made me sit back, and I've been listening to a lot of Queen in the last couple of days, just because, as every once in a while they would talk about a specific interview or a specific performance or something like that. And I'd be like, man, I got to go check that out. And I would hop on YouTube and watch it because, the music of Queen is just 100% timeless. So anyway, that is the only book that I read on my vacation, which is okay. I actually did start another book. It's not done, so it'll be on the next week's review. And that's fine also. Let me know. Number 1, are you a Queen fan? Number 2, have you read the book? Number 3, what did you think? Just get out and read. No excuses.